I definitely want to be able to be one of the ones that connects history and includes some of the things that I feel like people really need to know about Freedmen's Towns. I grew up at a time where it was no sleep because I lived in a cafe lifestyle. Just about my family did business in the cafe, and on every Sunday you still went to church. So it was that kind of community where people still had fun, but everybody went to church on Sundays. Those churches were filled, and it felt like any other normal upbringing. But the fact of the matter is, when I think about it today, okay, yeah, there was drugs and things like that, but I lived on the end that was at the front of Freedmen's Town. So every time I would walk this street, I had to walk from the beginning all the way to school. And when you get on this end, the upper end, I call it, there was the drug selling. There was groups of guys that you used to know them, and they decided to take their route. And my grandma taught us, you better not look that way. And it wasn't like they was harmless. There were some people I knew that knew them, and they would get them $1 for school. They still wanted us to do right. But it was felt scary. You know what I'm saying? So it was that kind of neighborhood sometimes. Each block was a different level of survival in just so many ways. But there were areas where there were your comfort zones, because the end I grew up on, Valentine on down, everybody on every street knew somebody. If you did something bad, you got to whoop. It's just like nobody else. It's just like every other community. We played footballs as girls. We played cops and robbers. We had Miss Woods, and you had that going on. And, you had Bible study program. Everybody got baptized at the same church. When one friend got baptized, you got baptized. Also, there was still a lot of clubs, going on. Like my grandmother, she was a drinker. She was a drinker. So what she liked to do is she went everywhere. With my grandmother, we would pick up cans and stuff, but we went to every block. She knew somebody. Or when we had parties, people had little block parties. Like this could be the whole yard with houses, and you got an outside party going on. It's always an outside party. Some, with the older people, where you come and you play with your friends. The older crowd, they do what they do, in a respectful way. No violence. Was never no violence. And there was a lot of blues, a lot of that kind of music going on. It really was no rap when I was growing up. So that definitely was an older feeling for me. But one thing I will say is we were very poor. I was very much poor, to the point where, that's in my eyes, we shopped at the thrift store and this and that. Not everybody in this neighborhood did that. A lot of people in this neighborhood knew how to take care of them kids and make them look good, and we did look good too. But it was just a different kind of vibe for me growing up, and having to adjust to humble beginnings, but having to still be tough in this neighborhood. You're still gonna have to fight. You're still gonna, it's like every other neighborhood. Or somebody playing basketball, you walking down this way after school, there's one house, they done took up the whole street playing basketball or something, which is, I remember those days walking back in, or the fish markets and the stores, the different stores that we went to in this neighborhood, and all kind of stuff. It was just a lot of stuff that kept us busy. When I grew up here, I knew nothing of any other neighborhood. I didn't know about a Fifth Ward. I didn't know about a Southwest Side. I didn't know about a Third Ward. I didn't know about anything, because we walked everywhere. The neighborhood felt so big because you walked everywhere. My grandfather worked at the city, which was where they have that property on West Dallas and stuff like that. And everywhere when we had to go to the doctors and stuff, we walked to St. Joseph. You walked to church. You walked, if you went downtown, we went to Woodwork. You walked there, or you caught the bus some kind of way. But it was nothing where I knew other neighborhoods as what they were. I didn't know of a Fifth Ward. I didn't, we didn't talk about that. Everything was, you knew about your neighborhood. That's all I knew. I would say the most rewarding thing was my education experience at Gregory Lincoln. Me looking back and knowing all the things that influence me now when it comes to theater and dance and gymnastics and, whatever, even sports and stuff, but just wanting to give back in an artistic, creative kind of way has influenced me. And the things I remember, like auditioning for school plays and recitals and programs and being picked, or your friends being picked, and that really influenced me. It really stays with me. It has a soft place in my heart to know that we did have a great experience when it came to top quality education. I will say that it was always in the picture to give us quality education, and I don't know who to thank for that. But I feel like the neighborhood and the reputation itself from the beginning is the reason why that was done. So we can thank Jack Hicks for that, because he was a teacher. His daughters were teachers, and they were in the school system, the Gregory School and this and that. And even then, the curriculum and the way we dressed, or those characteristics still existed with Freedmanstown, like the white dresses back in those eras. We still wore white dresses at Miss Woods. We wore white dresses for the graduations at Lincoln, from pre-K graduations, 5th grade graduation, 8th grade graduations. School, anything in the church was white dresses. So we kind of still kept that tradition, white dresses, or this is the model, or everybody, you knew you was getting a white dress. You knew you was picking the white dress, and they was elaborate. Like, people had, wow, it was beautiful. And I'm saying that education and the way that system was set up when it comes to giving us the best form of, training and experience, that's what did it for me. We used to have those parades where the school connected with the people, and we used to march down here, had the band going on. This community was so big and vibrant, even through the midst of having drugs in here and having parents my parent was on drugs, my mom was on drugs, but my grandmother never let us see that. My mama knew you better hide when you seen us coming, and it was that respect. It just was different, but just the experience, like I say, having fun and having these big things that happen out here, and you think about what happened to today. Why does that not exist today? It was a group of us. It'd be like 5 kids, and we going to go explore and find something to do. And we used to flip on mattress. Everything. Backflip, you name it. We're excited. We was excited kids, and made something out of nothing. Like I was telling you about some of the churches that came here, and they would utilize space that what didn't look desirable, was an eyesore. But when they would come in here and meet us on our level and introduce us to things, you kind of forget about how poor we was. It didn't feel like you were just poor, and it was just so much going on. It was just in the name of the people and how this community has raised us, because it's the community that raised us. Freedmanstown, 4th Ward has raised us. That's what people got to understand when you meet somebody from 4th Ward in Freedmanstown. They've been raised a totally different kind of way that I can't even explain it. It's not just a physical raising. It's a spiritual raising. It's a raising where your ancestors helping raise you, and I feel like that's the case when I'm thinking about and why I got what I have in me to have a desire to want to bring my community back when I don't even see a way. I make a way. I see ways, but people may not see what I see. And I feel like that's something, what leads me to that? What makes me to want to do what I want to do, knowing it's a hard fight? It can take a lot out of you. health-wise, because I've seen it with other activists. I've seen it. But something in me, and I think what does it for me is I saw a documentary with Barbara Jordan speaking about the state of Freedmanstown. And she said how we were going to be swallowed up, and she described it, and her words are so powerful. Everybody that knows Barbara Jordan. But what she said is we would be swallowed up unless, and this what sticks with me, because she said, I can only see somewhere in the far future somebody that has the strength, the knowledge to overcome this. And it speaks to me in so many ways. It speaks to me, and I feel like I'm that person. I'm up for that chance. I'm up for that challenge. And I've always been tough. Sometimes people can look at me as a bully, because I know I'm strong-minded. And I feel like I am the right person to bully this system of gentrification, to bully my way into you understanding how this really was, what this community really was about in all aspects. When it comes to the history side of things, when it comes to fighting for the people, or when it comes to anything my neighborhood. And that's why you have Gladys' house and her, the way she is and the reputation she get. People are scared of her because that's what this community made. And it's like, I'm like that too, but it's like we tough. So it's like, people from Freedmanstown. It don't take a genius to know we are distinct kind of people still now and today. So I would like to say that about us. I had a lot of friends that were in Miss Woods' kindergarten, and Miss Woods she's taught at least 4 decades of Fourth Ward community. My aunt was in Miss Woods, and she's 58 today, like February, but she was in Miss Woods, and that was back in the 60s. I was able to experience Miss Woods in the 80s, the early 90s. And she had elaborate celebrations of king and queen, where she taught the young ladies how to be graceful and virtue. She also taught the young boys, how to be gentlemen and pride. And, it was just so much she instilled in these kids, and it was more of a kindergarten program. So she was only working with kids at the age of 2, 3, and 4 before school. And she was so good at it, and she prepared them so well for school. People at Gregory and at Lincoln requested her students. So she had a lot of influence in the neighborhood with the early start of a lot of people in this neighborhood that I feel like she brought the spirit. When we're thinking about the Jack Yates era and what that looked like, she embodied that. And that was, like I said, that was started in the 50s, the late 50s, the mid 50s, when she decided to start her own kindergarten program. So I will like to say it will be more information about Ms. Woods, but those are the kind of conversations I want to bring into the discussion when we're talking about Freedmanstown, because I feel like it's too many of us that are still from Freedmanstown that are left. I mean, hundreds of us, hundreds. And I feel like it's my duty to be able to show how we are important and to make them feel it just as important. Because if you were born from this neighborhood, if we want to say this neighborhood is a historical grounds or this, that, and the other, whatever history wants to say, then we need to recognize that everybody from this neighborhood is a part of history and has a story to tell, and they are just as important. And I feel like that's not being displayed, and I just feel like it's a tragedy if we're not gonna advance that part of history when it's talking about this neighborhood, because if we don't, in my eyes, it's considered exploitation. It's on the verge of being exploited, and it has been exploited for many, many years, but to a level to where I think it's no regard to how people who feel, how we feel. Like, I'm going to be honest, I got into photography and things like that. I mean, I've learned it at Jack Yates High School with Ray Carrington. But at the same time, when I was growing up and we were living in this community and we didn't know what was going on in the media, in the political world, because we were too young, we wasn't educated on that. When people, people came in here with cameras to take images of us, and for whatever their reasons were. And I feel like when I go in these museums and I see some of the images of my people or people I knew, and it feels, people don't understand how that feels. Because it doesn't look like it makes our people feel honored. Because I pass those kind of pictures on, right? It's a difference when we do it with pictures we have than pictures you see in the museum. Some people, depending on what the picture is about, some people appreciate those pictures in the museum, but very few. But a lot of people are really speechless. And I would think I was expecting a reaction from them, something like, wow, wow. And I never really get that. And sometimes I have to ask myself, because I came across a picture where my grandfather's place was on display. And of course it was a good thing to see it, right? To see it. I was like, wow, it brought back so many memories with my family. But that was the most important thing about it, because I still felt, when I looked at all the other images that were there and saw other people we knew and, other family members, okay, it was okay, but a lot of times you feel just like what you do when you go to other museums and the questions you have. I mean, honestly, sometimes it makes me feel like I'm a monkey on display, like, just honestly. And I think for a lot of my people from this community that are trying to understand why they're trying to make it such a big deal that this is a historical place as well, why people are only interested in showing and profiting from the neighborhood, and we're not being really included. Our stories are not being accepted, they're not being appreciated, and they are not being included in history. And I feel like that's a big divide with the people who are originally from this neighborhood, which is still hundreds of us, as well as the newcomers who, these people knew when they moved up into this neighborhood and it was still being gentrified, how bad things were and this and that. And they do understand there's a part of history about this neighborhood in the beginning, that it was glorified to be the first settlement of freed slaves and prominent African Americans and businesses on every block. So you have to ask yourself, if any reasonable person would ask themselves, then what happened from then to now, from what I experienced? And I feel like, let's not be clueless about that. And I feel like the only time we're clueless about that is because we don't want to talk about how to correct that. And that's what the issue is for me, getting everybody on that page of not just exploiting the neighborhood, but also recognizing that there's still people from this neighborhood, descendants from this neighborhood, and looking at it as a aspect of history like that, because you can't exclude this and say, well, this is part of their history and this. You can't pick and choose what you're going to include with this neighborhood when it's talking about history. For one, we as a people who are in these places, in these positions, or in the name of nonprofits, in the name of historical preservation, we need to think greater than just one period of time, and we need to respect that. So I really feel a lot about when it comes to really talking about this neighborhood, and not just, it's not a quick thing, a quick fix, a quick story. It's really not. And I feel like a lot of people are treating it that way. It's not being appreciative When I go to the museums and I see myself or people, I really want to feel honored. I really want to feel it respected when we're saying, oh, I'm from there, and we're telling you we don't get that respect. We get treated like just as a visitor. I mean, it's cordial, but you don't get the respect. There's nothing set aside for bringing this information into play or these pictures. It's like, do you care about what we feel? It's not just about telling our story and you guys still profiting, because truth be told, in the next 50, 75 years, my story, the people that was in my era story will be important when you want to continue the history. So why not get it together? Why not accept the faith of what that means when it comes to telling the story of this neighborhood? And I think we're not addressing that. I think we need to do more of that. And that's what I'm here for. So it's my duty to be able to tell our story and to make us respected on that level, or just appreciated, honored. It's a lot of good, it's a lot of bad as well. But I do know, if you are curious to know the history of Freedmanstown from the beginning to the end, you will realize it really wasn't our fault. And you will understand the political fight, you will understand the decline of the neighborhood, and you will understand my passion for spotlighting the ill effects of gentrification, as well as the need for redevelopment, or the need for these concerns when we're doing neighborhoods like this. What's going to happen to those who are trying to stay there and survive? Because it's really a fight. It's a fight we didn't sign up for, but I feel like we need to start doing whatever it takes to fight back. And I'm not seeing that a lot, but maybe my work will spotlight that. Maybe it will be what I'm hoping we start doing, or what I hope for in the future. The number one thing we need is home. You need shelter. So if we're not really paying attention to that, in many ways, we're not going to be able to fight a lot of concerns and growing issues that are happening right now in our own city, with the education, with the crime, and everything. And if home is not right, nothing will be right. So I just feel like that's a big global issue when we're talking about the cities in America that are experiencing gentrification, because that's also another thing I want to do, is push this in different cities, start documenting what's going on in this city and make those correlations to, this is a repeated pattern. This is what's going to happen. Make these predictions so we can help each other, but also educate people in these communities to know gentrification is not just a building being built in your neighborhood. It's more than that. It's the things that causes your family to go into chaos. Higher rent, higher taxes, parents having to work 2 and 3 jobs, students and kids having to raise themselves because nobody is there. Kids getting out of control because they see a nice house next to them, and their house is not even, their house is in shambles, just about. Because of the past of Freedmanstown in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, when they were fighting for the neighborhood as well as making solutions for what's to come. So I feel like the reality of it, when I look at it, none of the new residents and the new structures include any of the old residents. Most of the old residents are situated in low-income housing and public housing, which makes them renters. It doesn't make them a homeowner. So I feel like that in itself should be addressed when it's talking about the ill effects of gentrification, because what are we doing here? My passion started first with the issue of homelessness, and my desire to want to understand it and tell the story that it didn't take much for somebody to be homeless. And I felt like that direction I was going through and trying to help and understand homelessness, it was just too big for my heart. I didn't think I could solve that issue. And what drew me to my community and gentrification is because when people started getting displaced and it became heavenly, one of the things I saw most were a bunch of funerals. And I also started seeing people downtown that I knew from this neighborhood. I knew people that were being pushed out. And so even then, I was staying in Third Ward. We were displaced and pushed to Third Ward. And I started working at a convenience store. And when I started seeing how heavily people that was staying across the street or stayed in Lost Ward, because my mom, we moved in Lost Ward too in Third Ward, and how it just doesn't exist anymore. And now there's people who are under the bridge in Third Ward that are from Lost Ward that they under the bridge. And now it's just more of, I know what's coming on. It feels like trauma. Like I said, it's just another way of being traumatized. For me, it's trauma. It's like, how do I save these people? How do I do this? How do I start, and not die from a broken heart, So my thing is to bring awareness to, of course, we already said the pursuit of happiness starts with making sure we have shelter and a home. It starts at home. Everything still goes back to home. So my thing is for anybody that's out there that's expecting to be able to change these communities, these people around that are being led to chaos and violence and stuff that we're seeing when we turn on the news. Everything we turn on the news is violence, this and that. So we have to really understand as a people that it starts at home. If their home is not stable, if their home is under attack, if their parents are being under attack or forced to be stressed out, it will never work with whatever we're trying to do. Whatever you're trying to bring to the table, whether it's a program, whether it's education, whether it's financial means or financial education, it will never work if your home is not stable. It's just that simple. If you are not stable at home, whatever we're trying to do or whatever change you're trying to make, it becomes harder and harder. So when I think about some of the ill effects of gentrification, and I know it's affecting just one targeted group of people, and those people who are being affected, not the newcomers, because when you turn on TV and you see crime, right? Crime is only pointed and directed at somebody, these young people of color, these young black boys, young black girls and things. Now you're seeing teenagers being shot and killed. We didn't have that growing up in the 90s and in the early 2000s. So with that being said, I've came to conclude that it's weird for me that two people can live in the same neighborhood right across each other. One person lives as a newcomer with a new, improved residence, and there's this other side next door where violence always takes place, and it's always due to people who are socially, economically deprived, that, low income, those who are fighting gentrification, those affected by gentrification. They're the only ones who are experiencing crime in that capacity. Of course you may have a break-in by newcomers in there. That's a given. But when we're talking about who's killing who on TV, on the television, on the news, who's doing what violence is, who's lost their life, it's always somebody in these gentrified communities that are being affected by gentrification. And it's not their fault. It's not their fault. I truly don't think these black boys, young black boys, are trying to kill themselves. I don't believe none of us in our communities are wanting to hate each other, because we didn't grow up like that. There were people that were friends, best friends, and now they are enemies. Because of why? Because of what life is throwing at you. Whatever life is throwing at you that you subconsciously don't understand. And that's another form of gentrification. That's what gentrification is doing. It's not just providing this new house next to you. It's doing more than that. It's doing a lot more than that. It's doing a lot more to our communities. And just like the city of Houston, America, and anybody else, they decide to study and want to point and show a graph in correlation to something that matters to them. Why are we not using that as the time to explore the ill effects of gentrification? Why are we trying to make this look like gentrification is so good? Because it's providing housing. It's providing upscale, never going to pay housing, never going to pay it off housing. Because it's providing a lack of opportunity for those who are real Houstonians. Because a lot of these developments and these new homes are being filled by people that are not even from Houston, not even from the state of Texas. So I would like to say that we're being sold out and pushed out. I won't even be able to claim Houston if this continues to happen. I'll be having the force to be living in Fresno and Pearland, or even way outside of that, somewhere else in a small town. If it continues to grow the way, or on the streets. On the streets. I'm not exempt. Nobody's exempt from being on the streets because of gentrification now. Nobody's. And we're doing more burying people than anything. And we're still trying to find a way to cope with our disposition. And I feel like it's necessary, if you're gonna include us in, because you already don't want to include us in history, but you're already doing it. But it feels like exploitation. I don't think you even asking or caring to know how we feel. We feel. It's a way to do it, and I don't think nobody mastered that just yet. And I feel like the least we can do is add monetary gain in the picture that's going to help benefit those who are descendants from here, because we still have greatness coming. We had a football player that's professional. We have a future gymnast that will be on the mural. These are people who will be on the mural, as well as football players from the past, and also basketball, okay? The Houston Rockets. We have a Houston Rocket fourth ward product of the neighborhood. They went to church out here. Family is very known out here. And I feel like they're important. In you guys' eyes, they're important. So how are you going to pick and choose what's important? This is a Freedmanstown, and the history of Freedmanstown is it's not condensed. It's a wide amount of information that it really takes people that really care. It's not a rush job. It is not a rush job. And I feel like we have to start thinking about the community. If you want these kind of information, if you think you are going to display this kind of information, you need to do more than that. You know, you need to think about the community. Before that, not the new community, the community before that. Then will be one of the people that we will honor on this mural. He was responsible for the fight of Allen Parkway Village. And he's important because if we understood what he fought for, it'll give us a better chance at fighting for your own community when it comes to saving structures, providing home, affordable housing, stuff like that. He's responsible for all that. He fought the political fight. He organized. And he has a story in himself that it expands for at least 2 decades. The fight for Allen Parkway. If you Google him, you know, it'll explain everything. Google Linwood Johnson. So he was very much influential, and I feel like with him, we need to start we have so many black leaders in these times in Houston, not just in America. Like Linwood Johnson was our own MLK of Houston. This community is the perfect community to be able to tell those stories, but also bring awareness to some of the social issues that have affected this community and that continues to affect this community. And I feel like, for me personally, that's not being addressed. A lot of people don't care about the displacement of individuals and the effects of gentrification. And I say that to myself because I'm a survivor of gentrification. And I was pushed out in the Third Ward area. And some of my family members were pushed out in Fifth Ward and Third Ward and then South Park and Sunnyside and North Side, and been traveling around. And now, when I think about a lot of the things that are happening in these other communities that I just mentioned, it feels like trauma. So it's my duty, first of all, to really let people know, first of all, tell your own story. Start documenting your own stories. But at the same time, start making change with the art in the community. Start bringing awareness to some of these things that these newcomers are interested in, which is now they've made this area art community. So all I'm saying is let me find a way to, and I am going to make a way to express myself to where I express my community the way you guys need to know it. That's my duty. My message to future generations is to educate yourself, self-educate. If you can't stand being taught by somebody else, always educate yourself. You're never going to be too old to continue educating yourself. Every day is education, as well as respect your history, respect who you are. Put yourself and your family in importance. I don't care if nobody never told you wasn't important. Tell yourself that you're important and keep moving. Keep moving.